This is the IBJ Podcast for the week of June 24th, 2019. I'm Mason King.
It's been really incredible to have not just my family, my parents, friends, but to have a group of investors to get behind me after watching all the fallout that's happened, to know that they know that Scott Wise is a good person and runs a good concept and runs good restaurants and takes care of people. I needed that.
Welcome back to the IBJ Podcast. Now, what you just heard is a snippet of my interview last week with Scott Wise, one of the best-known restaurateurs in central Indiana over the last 2 decades. Now, you would know him, of course, from the Scotty's Brewhouse chain, which he founded in Muncie in 1996, right out of college. It grew to nearly 20 locations in several states, and that's including 2 locations of the related concept, Three Wise Men Brewing Company. A slight majority of the total locations were owned by the company, with the rest independently owned, but branded and operated by Scotty's under a management agreement. In 2016, Scotty's and Three Wise Men were purchased for $10 million by 2 firms that intended to grow them nationwide. Of course, that hasn't happened yet. The restaurant group declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy in December, and that's the kind of bankruptcy that allows owners to restructure and eventually get back on their feet. However, several of the company-owned stores have closed as the bankruptcy plays out, as have several of the independently owned locations. The last count of closures since December is 9, including the original location in Muncie, and that's where Scott Wise comes back in. After the acquisition, he had a 5-year agreement to stay with Scotty's to help with the planned expansion, but ended up leaving by the end of 2017. He now is preparing to open a fresh concept called Roots Burger Bar this week in the very spot where Scotty's was founded in Muncie. And if the phrase, getting back to your roots, comes to mind, it's completely intentional. Scott spoke with us at length about a number of topics, including a nearly fatal disease he contracted 5 years ago, his decision to sell Scotty's, his exit from the acquired company, and what he wants to accomplish with Roots. Now here's our conversation, which we conducted in a corner booth at Roots. So Scott, thank you so much for helping with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure. So in this very building, 23 years ago, you opened the original Scotty's. Is that right?
I don't look old enough to be that old, do I?
No, you don't. You still look 25.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, like when I opened the restaurant as a 22-year-old, I never would have imagined, number one, surviving 23 years in this industry when they tell you that, I don't know, what 7 out of 10 of us fail within the first 3 years. Yeah. And then to add to that I'm a 22-year-old that has no restaurant experience. I've only been a waiter and a bartender and a cook. I hate to say I don't believe in the word luck, but I think the luck happened that I was really blessed to have 2 good parents that taught me how to be a good business owner. And I think most importantly, knew how to lead people and take care of people, you know, being honest and open and really treating your staff with respect. And I think that is what made this brand what it was. You got to have obviously a good product, and you got to have some good locations, and there are a lot of metrics that come into play. But at the end of the day, it's about treating people well, whether it's your staff or the guest that's coming through the door. If you take care of people, then all of that stuff works its way out, and I think you see it, and that's what created, I think, like this quote unquote cult-like brand loyalty.
So tell me about your parents. Were they restaurateurs?
They were not. They were just loving parents that taught me really well at an early age. I mean, they were entrepreneurs. So all I knew growing up was seeing them in front of I remember Sunday nights, it was 60 Minutes on the TV, and my dad and mom signing payroll checks and vendor checks. And they did lots of different businesses. They owned a laundromat, and they owned a lot of apartment complexes. And my dad owned a construction company, was the original thing that he had started. And I remember as a kid, you know, sleeping on rolls of carpet in a house, and they would build it, and then we would sell it, and we'd move to another house. And his company grew, and they grew. And I couldn't ask for a better life to come from to teach me about how to take care of people and how to run a business.
What is it like to be back in this space? I mean, are you flashing back to 23 years ago?
Oh, every time I drive into town, it's, you know, it's my hometown, right? So I went to college here and I grew up here, and this village area of Ball State. I remember as kids, we would ride our bikes here from home, and there used to be an arcade down the street that we would go, play in the arcade. And the nostalgia, I think anybody, when you go home, like if you go home for Christmas or you go home for Thanksgiving, and you have those warm, fuzzy feelings of growing up. And for me, and especially with this being my baby, this is the restaurant that I started with. When I heard that they were closing the restaurant, it was a sad day. I got a lot of calls and a lot of text messages, and it's been a roller coaster. And for me to come back to this, my baby, and to get in here, everything just feels so good. And sometimes I told my staff, I think God has given me the ability to hit a Control-Alt-Delete. Like I'm getting to do a reset, right? and not a lot of people get that opportunity, and I'm really blessed.
Now, explain to folks, how is it exactly that you just happened to be back in this building?
So the company that I had left decided when they bankrupted the company that this was one of the ones that they were going to Chapter 7. And so as a Chapter 7, that means they're completely cutting the ties from it. And then I was approached by a few different people that said, what do you think about coming back? And I said, gosh, I'm 45 and I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, and I feel like I've got this reset. And do I want to get back in this industry? Do I want to go through all the blood, sweat, and tears? And I thought, man, it's the only thing that really gets my heart racing. It's the thing that I know, and it's the thing that I love, and I feel like I'm a good teacher and a motivator for the team that's around me, the staff. I feel like I can really help them do things outside of restaurant. And as I thought about it, and I talked about it with my wife, and I decided, I'm ready. Let's do it. And so we sat down, and I said, here's what I think could be the concept, but I need to make sure that everything feels right. And as one of the things we had to do was talk to the bankruptcy court and see, can we get in? Can we buy all the equipment? And then secondly, where are we going to find a liquor license? And then thirdly, what about the landlord? What's the lease cost going to be, and how are we going to make that work? So there were a lot of different hoops that we had to jump through to make sure that it really vetted out as a possibility. And as we went down that road and we were checking boxes, it came to fruition.
Now, the people that approached you, were these people who wanted to be investors, or what was their relation to this?
There were a couple different groups. One were just groups of friends that said, we believe in you and we want to back you. We know you know what you're doing, and we want to back your next venture. Some of them are colleagues that work in the industry that actually work around the hardware and the software, some of the things that we are going to use in the restaurant. And I said, well, but I need to know that I'm in control, that I'm making the decisions. And, I know that we're going to have multiple layers of investors. So I need to know that I'm going to be the one that decide. I don't mind sitting down at a table and talking through things, but the concept has to run like I believe it's going to run. There were a lot of different things that we had to work through, but everything worked out.
So how big of an investor are you in this?
I own a little less than half.
Now, I'd heard your parents own this building. Is that not right?
They do. Yeah,
oh, okay.
They do.
So when you're dealing with a landlord, you're dealing with your parents?
Well, you know what? It's funny because when you go through situations like that, there are familial ties, right? They're not going to treat me like a typical lessee, but they run a business.
So what is Roots?
When I had this idea of this concept I wanted, I knew that I really love like this Shake Shack and these smash burgers that I was seeing places do, but I didn't want to be fast casual. I didn't want to be a fast food restaurant. I like guest service. So I had the idea of what I wanted to do, but see, I'm an idea guy, and I need help from other people that are experts to make me put things together or help me put things together. And so I contacted Craig Baker, great chef that works in Indy, Plow and Anchor, and The Local, and Bent Rail. Got a lot of expertise. And I sat down with him. He said, let's just talk through. What do you envision? And so I kind of talked through it and kind of knew what the burgers were I wanted and all these different, the little intricacies that I wanted within the restaurant. And so he left, came back to me a week later and said, I've got it. He goes, I haven't got the name. He goes, we need to call it Roots. And I go, okay, tell me why. And he goes, number one, the origin of these smash burgers is from Indiana, from northern Indiana. These flat press burgers come from Indiana. And number two, you're going back to your hometown. You're going back to your roots. You're going back to your alma mater. You were raised there. It was your first restaurant that you ever owned. it all works perfectly. And I even kind of added to it, and I told my team that as we're going through our training right now, and I said the third part of that story is that Roots can do nothing on their own. They need nurturing. They need nurturing from the staff that's around me that's helping me run this restaurant to the community. The community needs to water this thing and take care of it. If they want to see it grow, we need their support as well. Now, we as a tree, as a restaurant, we got to do our own growing. We have to prove ourselves, and we have to give great product and great service, and but we also need the nurturing from the others. So the whole story all just fit really well together. For me, it's like a mantra, like now it just feels like it's chapter 2. It's the second coming.
All right. This is a good place to take a break. We'll be right back.
The IBJ Podcast is sponsored by the Office of Minority and Women Business Development, which is committed to serving and certifying businesses owned by minorities, women, veterans, and people with ADA disabilities. The agency helps you access contract opportunities for city, county, municipal, and privately funded projects in central Indiana. For more information, call the office at 317-327-5262 or email at omwbd@indy.gov.
Okay, we're back with Scott Wise. We're in Roots Burger Bar in downtown Muncie. In what way is Roots a reaction to Scotty's? Was there ways that you wanted it to be different?
I definitely wanted it to be different, and I've even told the team as we're going through training right now that I said it's going to be a natural reaction, especially in my hometown, that people are going to come in with a certain expectation, and I hope the expectation is more aimed at quality service. When I opened restaurants, as I grew the Scotty's chain, I kept calling things Scotty's, right? And it wasn't because I was just this pompous ass that thought I needed to name everything after myself. I truly believe that the name Scotty's started being assimilated with great service and quality product and people that really cared about you when they were taking care of you at the table, and you were getting genuine people. And so I wanted that to really be the core essence of this thing. But I want you to forget everything else then, because we don't have fried pickles. And there are things that you're gonna come in. I've already seen people say, "Are you gonna have a peanut butter burger?" And what about your mother-in-law's carrot cake that you had on the menu for Scotty's? I'm not gonna, number one, I don't want to infringe upon. I left that group, and they own those things, and that's theirs. Whatever they're going through, they can go through. That's them. I needed to cut a new path. Now I'm still in the burger business. For me, life sometimes gets taken too seriously. I wanted things to come out in a black plastic basket because, number one, that's how I did it originally, and number two, it's got a little checkered red and white liner in it, so it feels like you're almost like at a picnic. And because you see that, and it makes you instantly feel like, well, this is just bar food. It'll just be okay. And then you take a bite of it, and you're like, holy cow, this is amazing. It's a burger, and it's sloppy, and it's messy, and I've got a paper towel holder on the table, and I got to take rolls of it off, and I got stuff dripping down on my elbows. And that's what I wanted. I really wanted us to not take things so seriously, and I wanted the food to be really, really high end, and I wanted to focus on less. The Scotty's menu was great at its peak, but there was just so much. And when you do so much, sometimes you can't do everything great because you're trying to do too many things. I wanted to dial that back in and say, let's really focus on being a great burger joint, but we can do some other things. We've got a blackened cod, and we've got some chili dogs, and we've got a tenderloin that's awesome. We're even doing a steak frites. But whatever we did, I wanted to make sure we weren't doing too much.
When people come in here, if they've been accustomed to coming in here for years, is this going to really look different?
That was the one thing that I was a little concerned with. I thought, are people coming in, are they going to come in and think, I can't wait to see the new layout?
Yeah.
Part of the attraction for us as investors to get into this thing was that we were able to buy my original equipment for pennies because we bought it out of bankruptcy. And because of that, we didn't want to go and I didn't feel like it needed changed. In fact, this thing was just remodeled 3 or 4 years ago. The look, other than the way that the table looks, is going to, the way that we present your salt and pepper are going to be in little Corona bottles. And, we were going to bring popcorn to the table that we make in the restaurant. And I brought in a soft serve ice cream machine that's out in the dining room. Every kid that comes in and orders from the kids menu is going to get a free ice cream cone, and they're going to go get to make their own ice cream cone at the soft serve machine. So there are little things that are going to act differently. The logo of the shirt looks a little different, but the heartbeat is the same.
Well, now that you're back in this, what is the one thing that you're discovering that you really, really missed, really loved?
That's so easy. It's being here on the floor. I've been tied to a desk for the last, when I was at the Scotty's Corporation for the last 5 years or more, I had to sit in an office. When you have 18 restaurants and you're in multiple states, there are all kinds of things that I had to do from an office side, but it became a job. And my parents always taught me that once you find your path, it'll feel like you're at play and not at work. And it wasn't that I lost the passion for the industry, but I really just my heart wasn't racing like it used to. And like right now, when I get up, I'm getting up early like I did back in the early days, and I'm excited to get here and drink restaurant coffee and talk to my team. And I haven't even got to the most fun part besides talking to the staff is talking to the guests. And that's, I haven't been able to do that in years. In my early beginnings, I would bartend 3 nights a week in the original restaurant. Then when I had 3 restaurants, and I had Muncie, Bloomington, and Lafayette, I was still bartending 1 night a week at each restaurant. And it was hard. It was hard on my life. And you clearly find that at some point you can't keep that up. But right now, people ask me, well, what's your aspirations with this thing? Are you going to grow it? And what's your goal? And I said, why does that always have to be? I get that I've created this thing before, and now maybe they just want to know what the expectation is. But man, because I've gone through what I've gone through, as cliche as it might sound, I am enjoying the journey, and I'm enjoying day by day.
So why did you want to sell?
Really because of what I just said. Once I got to that, so when I was just working in the office, I feel like I lost a little bit of the love for the industry. Or maybe I didn't lose it, but I got off track. And I wasn't where I needed to be. I needed to be down here on the floor level, being in the mix.
So what did you think you would be doing, though, after you sold the restaurant? Wasn't there a deal initially for you to help run the restaurant somehow?
My assumption and what I was told was that I would be running the restaurant as we were going to grow.
Running Scotty's.
Running Scotty's to over 200 locations across the country and internationally. And 2 months in, I was removed from being the president and put into a no named role. After about 3 months of finding out that was not what I was meant to be doing, I started working on a severance agreement to get out. Unfortunately, it was a sad line of events the way it happened, but I'm not going to dwell over what could have been, should have been, was. At the time, I thought I was making the right decision for not just myself, my family, but all the investors that were with me.
As you alluded to before, the group that bought Scotty's declared bankruptcy, I think, late last year, and several locations have closed. Do you have a sense of what happened?
Because there are still lawsuits hanging out there, I really don't probably feel comfortable answering questions like this. Yes, I have my opinions. I don't know if I can voice them right now.
Some people could look at that situation and assume, well, Scotty saw the writing on the wall, or saw that the organization was in trouble and it tried to get out, and it basically sold these guys a lemon. Is that right? How were things going when you sold things?
Things were great. When we sold the restaurant, sales and profitability were great. The restaurant had a lot of potential. I knew that things would change. I knew that there would be, they would see something that maybe I was spending money on social media, and let's not use the money there, let's put it towards here. Or let's not spend any of that money, let's keep it in our bank. But sometimes you can change a brand so much. Let's forget this whole picture. Let me use a different analogy in a different organization. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times a private equity group will come in and buy a company, and I think that they forget that they bought it for a certain reason, that it was doing a lot of good, and now they're changing that. I don't know if it's because the group feels like they know more than you know, or sometimes they do. Sometimes there's a group that comes into a company and they've got some efficiencies that you didn't know about, and they're able to save money here and there. But I think sometimes you can go in, and if you change too many things too fast, and you remove a lot of qualities, and then you remove somebody that was maybe the brand ambassador or the heartbeat of the organization, then you start losing. It starts losing the magic that it had before, and now it's becoming like everything else that's out there. I can't speak to what the group that bought Scotty's had in mind, because I was always under the assumption that I was going to be running the company, and I thought that, okay, this is great. All of our debt is going to be paid off. We're going to have a pool of cash to be able to grow the company, because they said we're going to grow to 200 locations. Some people said, well, if things were going so good, Scott, why wouldn't you just keep growing? I think when I saw my father go through the recession, and my mother, and get decimated by what had happened, you you see your heroes go through something in life like that, and it scars you because you can't do anything about it. I couldn't help them. And, as good parents, they were even throughout that time, they're even trying to teach me through the recession, like, okay, here's your mom and dad are getting really hurt by this. If this ever happens, make sure you do this. And you're listening to all that. So fast forward from the recession, 8-9 years, and I felt like the economy was going so well. Everything was moving so well. I would go to that statement where someone would say, why would you sell then? My answer is because pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. I don't want to be greedy. I saw what happened to my parents, and I didn't want that to happen to any of my team. I didn't want, it wasn't just my family I was taking care of. I had 2,000 employees that I needed to take care of. I had investors that believed in me. And I thought I was doing the right thing for everybody. And we can sit here today and people know now how the story unfolded, but it's sad it has nothing to do with me being sad that the brand was killed. It's sad that I've got kids that worked for me for years that I don't know what they're doing now. I'm hopeful that they all landed on their feet, but I felt like I was making the right decision for everybody involved. I believed in these people. And when I sold it, one of the things they told me was that all my work that I had done over the last 3 or 4 years with people with special abilities, that new mission that I had to really open the door for people that had Down syndrome and some were on the spectrum and they had autism and they weren't getting, all these employers were not giving opportunities. I recognized that there were all these kids that were great employees and had great attitudes, and they weren't no one was offering them a chance. And so I started doing it, and what I saw within these people and within my staff that was working around them, and these parents and job coaches that were stopping me in the airport and saying, thank you for what you do.
You were hiring people with special needs or special abilities to work in the restaurants.
Yeah, I had a goal. So my goal, I don't want to bore you and get off track, but I got a brain infection, almost died, came out of this thing.
You had a brain infection?
I did. Yeah, I got.
And this was 5 years ago.
It was about 5 years ago. It was viral encephalitis, and I came out of it in the hospital, thinking that it was several days earlier because I didn't know I was having seizures and in this state of craziness. I came out of that and I thought, you know what? I need to do more for not just the community. I need to do more for my family. I need to appreciate life more. You go through a life near-death experience, and it changes you. I got baptized right away.
After your recovery.
Right after I got out of the hospital, I recommitted to my faith, and I said to myself, I'm going to do more for the people that work in my company. I want, we do good things in the communities, but I want to do more for the 2,000 employees that work with me, and I want to teach them how to be good people in our world. And through all of that, it was at the time when the Arc of Indiana came to me and they said, we want to do a restaurant in downtown Muncie. But here's the caveat, 25% of your staff has to have some kind of physical or emotional disability. And I said, I'm in. And so we did that. We put together the project, Three Wise Men in downtown Muncie. And it was such an amazing experience to work with all these individuals. And so I decided, because of the success of it, because I saw it and how great it was, all right, our new mission in this company is that 10% of our workforce, my goal was by the end of 2017, would have some kind of physical or mental challenge, post-traumatic, ADHD, autism. I didn't care. I wanted to help. I wanted people to get a chance to come to work and prove themselves. And we got up to, before I sold the company, we got up to 7%. And as I was interviewing companies that were looking at buying Scotty's, that was one of my first things I said, is that I got to know that this is a piece that you will not take away and that you will grow across the country.
We're running a little bit long, but I did want to go back to one thing real quick that you alluded to before. That, you are a defendant in some civil suits, several in Marion and Allen County. At least a couple of them are from investors who said that, are accusing you of defrauding them, of causing them to lose money. Is there anything you can say to those suits? Is there any response you can give?
I can't. At this time, because it's a lawsuit, I don't think I can comment on that right now. I would say understand that there are two sides to every story. And right now you only have heard from one. And I hope that my reputation of what I've done over the past 20 years and knowing that I've been around for a long time and done a lot and worked with a lot of these investors for 5 and 7 years, I think you'll at some point you'll hear that there's another side of the story.
And going back to one other thing that you brought up, so people have been asking you, so what are you trying to do with Roots? And I think your response was, you're literally taking this one day at a time. So you're telling me that you don't have rendering set up in the office upstairs.
I do not.
And a series of cities that you want to go to next.
I don't. I want to take it one day. I truly don't have any goal in mind of. Number one, I don't know if I would want to grow into as I just alluded to towards the end, it became something that I didn't enjoy as much. So I don't want that to happen again. I'm driven and I love to try to be better at everything I do. So I'm not going to say that there couldn't be more of these opening up at some point, but I don't think I would ever grow as big as it was before, because I really truly not only want to enjoy what I do here, but a restaurant can take your time away from probably the most important thing, and that's your family. And I don't want to lose that. I think lately the kids keep asking where I'm going when I'm leaving in the morning, because they're used to dad working from home, at least for the last year or two. For me, it's been some of the most enjoyable time I've ever had. For 20 years, the kids haven't been around for 20 years, but for the last 12, I wasn't home to have dinner or make dinner or come watch soccer games. And there's a lot more to life than running a bunch of restaurants. I want to love what I do. I want to do it well. I want my kids to see that I'm setting a good example for them, and I want to be there for my wife and my kids. The other thing I want to do is it's been really incredible to have not just my family, my parents, friends, but to have a group of investors to get behind me after watching all the fallout that's happened, to know that they know that Scott Wise is a good person and runs a good concept and runs good restaurants and takes care of people. I needed that. I needed, your dad and mom can tell you you're great and they love you, but sometimes you need other people to remind you that they still believe in you. I believe in myself, and I know my wife and kids do. But it's been very humbling, and I needed it. I needed this to happen, and I think God puts certain things in front of us for a reason, and He also puts us through certain things for a reason. And everything I've gone through, as some good and many things difficult, I appreciate all of it because it's made me a better human being. And I'm on this journey in life just like you are, and just like a lot of people are that are listening to this. And I just want to do right by God and my kids and my family and my parents and all those that are working behind me and those new investors that are supporting me. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to prove everybody that Chapter 2 is going to be a lot better than Chapter 1.
All right. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
My thanks again to Scott Wise. We went a little long this week, so I just want to quickly draw your attention to a special supplement in this week's edition of IBJ. It's our annual Indiana 100 section, an authoritative accounting of the largest public and private companies in the state, as well as interviews with top executives. Now, this is something our reporting staff here at IBJ uses as a resource for the rest of the year, and there's a ton of fascinating information here. And you can check it all out in the copy of IBJ you have delivered to your home or office, or at IBJ.com. For full and unfettered access to all of IBJ's award-winning business content, just hit the subscribe button. Hey, thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ Podcast, which is edited by Leslie Weidenbenner. I'm Mason King, and we'll be back again next week.